Vincent, and he is speaking on speaking metrics to executives. So, Michael?
Okay, so just quickly about, this is not going to work, so we'll drop that. I had breakfast this morning and other things going on. It's like, okay, here we go, and it works, but not necessary. I want to level set as we get started. First of all, if you're looking for this, you're at the wrong track. There's a lot of really good stuff at BSides, and an awful lot of it is technical. This isn't that session, but the reality is sometimes we're going to have to take all that good work that's happening on the technical side and be able to communicate that to leaders so they know what we're doing, so they can see the accomplishments, and honestly so they can fund it, because otherwise we don't get the tools we need to do the job. And so if you were thinking the hacker track, anywhere else around, you'll probably find it this morning. We're talking about leadership and talking with leadership, and that's kind of the whole focus of here. Briefly about me, I've been doing information security for 25, 30 years. I started in the defense industry, then joined the internet boom, and kind of wound my way through different organizations. Along the way, I got into that thing called management, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to get people moved up and equip them, and part of that was learning how to talk to the senior leaders in the organizations to support the program. So a lot of this is going to be focused that direction. So let's start into it. When you go talking with leadership, to be very frank, they are not interested in the technical details or tactics that you did. They don't spend time with hackers. They focus on strategy. And so we have to be that bridge between what's happening on the technical level and the next step up. We have to be able to speak and present and hold ourselves in a manner that allows that communication to happen. And so this session is really intended to work on one of the things I find a common tripping stone, something I struggled with a lot, which is how to take metrics and numbers that we're very used to and get them to communicate a meaningful message to our leaders. I'm going to show you some examples, some bad, some better. And as we go through, we're going to talk not necessarily what my numbers are, they're not all that relevant, but how you think about presenting them so you can improve whatever it is you're going to present. So with this, let's start here. Please, don't do this. This slide, or something fairly close to it to protect the guilty, this image, literally in the last 6 months, was put in front of a board of directors. It didn't do any good. It's large, meaningless numbers. And they got no reaction from the board. They thought this was going to be brilliant. They got no reaction from the board other than, so what's your strategy? We'll see you again in 3 months, and we want to see your strategy. Not the effect. Now, we know the solution for that. Obviously, you don't put the graphics up. You just give them this instead. Please don't show raw numbers. And I call them this way because these sort of charts have a numbing effect on business leaders. Eyes just glaze right over. And there's no business context. You lose them. And you spent time gathering this, but it's worthless to them. The CEO and the other senior leaders that you're going to interact with when you get that opportunity, they expect you, the security leader, to address the daily security issues, all that operational stuff. And so for you, this is valuable information. For them, not so much. They expect you to accomplish a mission, whatever that takes. And so you've got to kind of separate that out, and when you bring forward the business issues which these metrics represent. Typically, that's going to be graphs. What sort of graph? It's up to you. There's all sorts of different ways of graphically presenting numbers, but it's probably going to be in that form. And as you do that, it's okay to summarize, and it's not quite as detailed and precise, but make sure you know these numbers behind the graphs when you do present, because some of those people are pretty darn sharp, and if they ask, you have to be ready for it. With that, maybe you give them something like this instead. Here's your typical presentation. not too bad, but there's some pitfalls we want to avoid on this chart. So quickly, this chart still gives no real information to an executive. How much spam didn't hit the company? It doesn't provide any insight, not by itself. Is there a call to action here that you want me, the board member, to do? So to get some support, to get some real business impact, we're going to have to explain a little bit more about email. Remember, the business doesn't care about how you did it, what the external factors are that the business can't control, not that much, and they really don't care exactly how much. They want to know about how much. They do care, is email being delivered? Is the spam and the malware generally being blocked? It's minimal or none. They'd like none, thank you very much. And what are the trends? So we're going to try again. We'll give them maybe this slide a little bit better. Quickly, taking a look at this, we now have a little bit of a story forming up because you can see flow. This tells that if I didn't have good mail filtering in place, the volume of mail hitting the individual users would be double, and there'd be a whole lot of garbage in there. Okay. And that doubling of email, half of which is spam, would not help the business. So now I start to appreciate your spam filtering. I care now. Not because I care about your spam filtering, but I care that you're cleaning up something. You're doing a business valued function to make the business more efficient. So we're starting to talk in business terms. But we can do better than this. There are several flaws with this. It probably would best look maybe like this. Talk through a few points. First of all, let's get the colors right. Delivered mail is green. That's good. Shorthand it for them. Because it's not that they're stupid, but they don't have much time, so make it real accessible. The stuff that we want to say is worrisome is in yellow with a nice red border around it. Those are cautionary colors. We've also thought about on this chart the differentiation of how it's presented. On this slide it looks great. What if I print it in black and white? That previous one, dark green, dark purple, will come out dark gray and dark gray. This will actually print out on a black and white printer, still be readable. Oh, what if they see it on a tablet? More often than not, if you're going to the top leaders, think about how it will look on a tablet. This morning I had a wonderful experience. I had my laptop all ready to go, and I said, all right, here I go to B-Sides. Wait a second, my laptop has HDMI. I wonder if they have HDMI. I grabbed my iPad. Guess what? They don't have a whole lot of HDMI interfaces. Guess what happened to my slides? Yeah, they got a little munched, so I had to go fix them. So think in advance how your material is going to present on the form factor that they're going to look at. It doesn't matter how good it looked at beforehand. It matters what they see. Okay, enough on that. We're not really here to talk about slides in email in particular. We're here to talk about what I call numbers. This is the picture. This is your executive. There is your data. And he is enjoying it, because you present it in a very palatable way for him to consume it and use it right away. All the information has been brought into context. Everything's pointing to a trend or towards a solution that you're recommending in a nice tight form. It's not a puzzle for him to go figure out. That's not what he likes to do. And you got kind of this immediate consumption approach. These are the key steps you've got to walk through when you look at whatever you're bringing to your leadership. Is it actionable? That means it creates an urge, a push to do something now. The leaders are going to be driven by two things. They have a long-term strategy, and they're concerned about risk at a tactical level because it messes with their long-term strategy. And that's it. Make sure that whatever you're doing delivers towards those ends. It has to be presented in a clear form. It has to be easy for them to absorb. Everything in the detail level has been summarized when I showed you these charts. The complexity is removed. That doesn't mean it's stupid. Sometimes you have to work these very hard, and I'll show you kind of a harder one in a moment. But we've gotten the complexity out of the presentation so we can talk about the idea. Anything that we've got should be trend focused. You gather data over time, consistent periods, consistent way of measuring. You know how it's done if they ask you. And now when they start looking at that, they're going to look at the trend lines, they're going to look for variances. That's how they think. They have this accounting mindset. And as they drill through that, you'll present in a way that shows them trends so the conversation is easy. And finally, everything's got a story behind it. The things that you probably remember about field trips as a kid, what happened in family history, all these things have stories around it. So make sure that you can take the essence of what you're talking about, pack it into a story so it delivers easily and they can process it. I don't just throw the slide up there and say, oh, email, we got a problem with spam, I need more money. You're probably going to talk a little bit about how it impacts the business, and when you wrap it, they'll resonate with the story and they'll go after that. Ultimately, these are meaningful metrics. They're successfully delivered. They're successfully filtered, how we get it ready. And then we go forward with flows and trends and we have an ask. So I want to go into something that I found challenging to explain. It's a little more complex. And this is our favorite thing to deal with, perhaps, if you've led a team where you deal with the server admins. And that's called vulnerabilities. It's so easy to go ask the CEO to help solve your vulnerability problem. The challenge is the security team, us, we're going out there and you know what it is out there. You've all seen it. And the sysadmins are like, don't waste my time. You come, you make me patch, I patch, it's a waste of my time. Next month you want me to patch again. I don't understand you people. It's a waste. I've got better things to do. And management has to try to sit and listen to these two arguing sides and figure out what to do with it. So we're gonna lift this whole argument up and make it a lot better. Because otherwise you will end up like one of my other poor friends here that just never managed to get across this gap. Okay. I want to enable you to show, and if necessary, drive patching success, if that's the thing you want to go do. Two very hard activities. One of them is about the patching itself, getting people to do that, and the other one is the configuration. And there's a whole lot of detail and other people that can talk much better and give you lots of great ideas about that. I'm just going to talk about how you're going to get the board to fix the problem. We're going to focus on risk, not the technical, what the vuln is. It doesn't matter, MS whatever, OWASP whatever. We're going to drill down and make sure before we present anything that you get your charts together and you share them with the system admins and you share them with the CIO, because no surprises is good. And once you've explained and you've argued through the methodology and they go, well, yeah, I guess that's a fair way to represent the numbers, then when you present the numbers and the CIO still doesn't like it, it's too bad. He at least agreed to the methodology. Here's the approach I took, because I've seen what spits out of the tool. It's usually a number that says you have 17,150 vulnerabilities. Okay, what do I do with that? We're going to take it a little differently. To break it down. I thought, with some help, the teams I work with, to compute a risk score that's not so abstract. We know that the risk scores often are calculated on how big the vulnerability is. Maybe there's different scales and they give you a number out of it. I like grading. Grading it's like school. We all kind of get that. We either painfully remember our grades, or maybe if we've got kids, we're painfully dealing with grades, but we get grades. They're pretty easy to understand. They communicate a story very quickly and clearly, and they're discrete. You got A through F, and you're done. So if you put things in nice discrete groups, you can count them. And you can start determining who our low performers are in the classroom. And we're going to solve that problem. Let's march into it. Here's what I did. You can disagree, your own formula, go right ahead. But basic idea. Run our scanner tool, comes back and says, here's what I found. So many criticals, highs, mediums, lows. I'm going to assign each a weight. Somewhat arbitrary, you can play with them. The fun thing with this is, I guarantee you, that no matter how much you play with the weightings, if you've got problem servers, they'll still get an F. Go ahead and play with these numbers, I don't care. You work it to tune it until you satisfy your sysadmins. This one came out actually not bad. And while you might want a perfect server, in the real world, okay, one high, not happy about that, medium low, not bad. Gets a B. Okay, fair enough. And maybe you've got these servers laying around. This isn't a whole lot worse, but it's got a critical on there. We know what that means. The board doesn't. But in this scaling score, this is an F. This is a problem server. Now, if we start taking all our servers, we score them, and then we say, how many do we have that are Fs? How many Ds? How many Bs? We can get something that looks like this. The specific remediation actions we can talk with the engineers about, but this is a leadership discussion we're having. Since we've counted them, top leaders look at this, they see trend lines, and they can decide whether this threatens their business strategy or not. Remember, they only care about two things, and vulnerability scores ain't one of them. But here they can look at this and go, huh, okay. And be sure when you present this that you're ready to explain what are the resources left to fix it. Because they're going to ask you. And you have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to need this many man hours. Or Project Alpha that we're working on, it's taking up all the time the system engineers. Honestly, if we could just slide that 30 days and give me full focus, we will nail this. Whatever the resource requirements, time, people, money, licenses, make sure you know what that is before you go and stand before these leaders. Because they're going to say, what do you need? And when you answer crisply, they're going to turn to the CIO. This is the fun part. They're going to turn to the CIO and say, you told me months ago we couldn't solve patching, and now look at this trend line. We're getting pretty good here, even though the number of servers is increasing in the environment, right? We can see the height of the bars. We, the board, have decided we don't want any more Fs or Ds in the environment. So in the next 30 days, no red on this chart. And by next quarter, we want to see everything kind of in the C and above. We're happy with a B. And you look across the CIO and smile. Okay. So there's an awful lot of stories you can tell with metrics. Okay, I've given you two. There's a whole lot more. I would love to hear from you. I'd like all of us to be talking with each other about meaningful metrics that drive action in the business. You have to change your mindset when you get ready to walk to the other side of the hall and think about stories and business impact. But if you're doing that, you'll see your program suddenly surge forward because you're talking their language. The CIO will no longer argue with you because every time you bring a new metric to the table, it's just so painful not to comply with your wishes. Think about the numbers you can collect. You've got to be able to collect something. It's got to be something you collect in cycles. And it has to be collected consistently so that it's defensible. And you have to be able to explain it. And then when you get all those numbers, turn them around over and over. Try different ways, bar charts, whatever. Talk to other people. Go talk to marketing. They're so great at making things look so pretty. But get the numbers in a form that the story comes out and drives the direction you want it to drive. And then just get it down real tight, because you're going to get about 5 minutes in front of the board if you ever do talk to the board. Put the slide up, give them a few bullet points, and in 2.5 minutes you're done, and you've addressed a very significant piece. And when they kind of sit back in the chair, and they go, so what's it going to take? You win. So that's the direction. Make sure people want your numbers. Make them tasty. Make them presentable. And when you do this, you will start to influence your company's actions. You'll have more success with your program. And I think you'll find it much more satisfying to be in this very challenging industry that we're in. So with that, you can find me on Twitter. I'm just1ping. I would love to hear from any of you if you've got some ideas about other metrics that we might want to talk about. I'd love to continue the discussion on Twitter. Thank you. I think it's on. Just a little light. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for your talk. Thanks for the suit. Really appreciate that. little advertisement. There's a talk tomorrow at 5 o'clock that goes deeper into scales and weights and all that stuff. So if anybody's interested in diving deeper in that. The question to you is, how do you deal with executives who want to see a dashboard, so all the metrics on one screen and so forth, yet telling a story with it seems to conflict with the idea of having a dashboard? How do you marry these two together?
Dashboards are real challenging because they do boil it down until you end up with mush. We need to be very thoughtful about which metrics we pick out, because when you pick out a metric to present at a high level, there's so much you're going to lose. Or you're going to pick a very narrow one that's just too narrow. Look at what drives your company. Look for the metric that matches it. If I were, I work in hospitality, so in that space, I might look for metrics that either reflect satisfaction, like if Wi-Fi for our guests isn't working, that's a technical problem, but it matters to the business. I would avoid something real esoteric that I can't easily peg back to the business. And then maybe when they drill down the next level, you'll have opportunity to open it up. Think also about things like reputation. Reputation is really hard to quantify, but an awful lot of what we do can quantify that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And the other talks, any talk that goes into metrics, how to get deeper into it, I'd go after those talks and see what you can learn.
Really quick, what are your thoughts on GQM approach to metrics with executives?
I'm going to beg ignorance on
goal question metric approach, where you start with a goal, develop a set of questions for that goal, and then metrics that answer the questions.
The question is how you set goals. And I think if your goals, if you're talking very broad, like business goals, and you talk security goals, how do you get your security goals lined up to the business in the first place? If you do that when you're setting your goals and thinking about what metrics you're going to use to support them, I think it works back down the other way, but maybe that's not what you're asking about. I've found that in the security space, we're not very mature yet in how we talk to top leadership. And so if you've got a good methodology, try it. If it's not working, be willing to change it. And reach outside of InfoSec people. I remember very serious. Talk to marketing, talk to someone on one of the business lines, and see if what you're doing makes sense. Okay, there's going to be a lot of great speakers around today. As you're going to these different sessions, every time you hear numbers out there, you're hearing it from some of the smartest people around. Grab that, but then ask yourself, is this one of those numbers I can turn into a number? And then serve it up, see how it goes. Thank you very much.